over time, I used to get real upset when I would lose a listing. So I'd always call them and ask them every time. Why? Really, out of curiosity for the most part, like, really, why did you not list with us? We have a better plan, we have a better presentation, a better everything, and what happened was a big aha moment for me was, I kept getting this, we liked the other agent better, we felt comfortable, we loved everything you had to say, everything was great. But we just felt more comfortable with the other agent. And it drove me crazy. It literally drove me crazy. So we started really trying to dissect this. Mike started this whole animal, I don't know how long ago it was. It's probably been 4, 5, 6 months ago. It was this summer, and he asked me a question about what was the most valuable thing I could probably ever share. And I said, man, it would probably have to be, the system I use for listing houses. I never even shared it with Mike. He had never even really seen like everything because I never really floated out in segments like we did in those videos. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of go through some of the key things because I don't think there's any reason to do a presentation without the prior information that's gathered going into that, because 90% of every single listing that I take is because of the information that's gathered up front and the process that I go through before I get to the presentation. And like I said before, I very rarely have to go to the presentation to close. It's not very often that happens. If you're going after specific business, like for sell by owners or expireds, yeah, you're going to go through your presentation. It's not that good. So you're still going to have to go through your presentation most of the time. I still recommend using the presentation just for managing their expectations, if nothing else. So we'll start with basically the 4 systems that are, I guess, the 4 things that are really included in the listing system. And the very first thing is the interview. But it's not just any interview. This is ninja, okay? We're going to get some good information that we're going to use that they have no idea that we're going to use. The second thing we're going to talk about is going to be how we get congruent, becoming the market expert, and then, say that again. That says ninja. Ninja. Oh yeah, rapport. Become the expert. That's an R. This market board was moving all over the place. Did y'all see that? The expert, whatever. Yeah. Yeah, you definitely don't want to like draw stuff like this in front of your seller. That presentation's got an extra letter in it for some reason. I don't know what that's all about. Anyways, so like I said, I never said I was the smartest kid in class, right? So anyhow, all right. So we'll go through. I want to real quick go through. Let's put the seller counseling interview up. It's kind of I recommend using really large paper. It just throws people off. How does this thing work?
I would use the words. Much more effective.
I would like to fill one of these out as we go.
You want a pen?
Okay, what we'll do is, for the purpose of going to the presentation, I think I guess we'll take a toll. Does everybody want to hear me go through the presentation with Wally as I would a client, or would you rather me go through and give you more of the presentation, really the meaning, what I say and the meaning behind it as I go? We're gonna have to, all right, with Wally, raise your hand. Both? All right, we're gonna be here an extra hour probably, but we can do that.
If you guys don't want to go to bed till like 11, we're good with that.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to see me stick the business to him a little bit and see him how he works around it, then raise your hand. Okay. It's like no, it's like 50-50. Hey, you want to flip a coin? Yeah. Flip a coin. That's a good one. Flip a coin. All right, Mike, you call it in the air. Heads is he does it with me. Tails is
Wally's gonna make this.
They get the chef's tour.
Heads it is.
Heads it is.
What was heads?
You're stuck with me.
Oh. All right.
Oh, that's nice. And I love you too, Jay Kinder.
Okay, for the purpose of saving time, since now I got to wear out Wally, we're going to. I just want to kind of go through some of the things that are real critical when it comes to the seller counseling interview. Now, I talk about in the real importance of the positioning. So Dina is the one that handles these calls, whether it's a for sale by owner, an expired, or anything. She's always the one that's gathering information. So if it's just a seller that calls in, which is a lot of our clients, or following up when it gets down to the time to fill out information, she is to fill out as much as she possibly can. If it's a D, this may not be always filled out. sometimes that happens. So, or a red, I guess would be another way to put it. So some of the more important things on here, we collect information, the source 1 and source 2. The reason we do that is we have so many branding mechanisms out there. We want to know what was the last thing they saw, was the reason they called, and then was there any other reason that they may have called? Because a lot of times they'll say another source, or, well, yeah, we listen to the radio every day, or yeah, we see on TV, or yeah, this or that or the other. So trying to get an idea of what other things that they're remembering about our marketing that may be actually working. We're actually going to start focusing on that very first question to find out, is there anyone we need to thank for sending us your business? Okay, so from a lifetime value point of view, that's a much more important thing to know, is if there was somebody that was involved in referring them or that mentioned our name that we need to reward. So we're going to ask that question. I think actually Dean is actually already starting to do that. So make sure we collect that information. One of the real important things, and Wally, you can just make something up on the fly about what you've done to your property. I'm sure you'll do a great job at that. But I would have this information up front. This is really, really, really important, as all the questions about the property and what they feel are the best features of the home, what they like about the home, why they may have bought the home in the first place. You really want to get some stuff here, because this is stuff, as you're building rapport, you're going to have to use as ways to get in alignment with the prospect while you're on the listing appointment as quickly as possible. So you want to make sure you pay attention to these little things like this that a lot of the reds here in the room are not very good at, including myself. So I generally review this as I'm walking up to the house with my file open, like, oh, what is it? What is it again? Okay, here we go. So you want to pay a little bit more attention to that. It definitely helps. When would they like to have this move happen? If they move in the area, staying or moving away, their target date, real important. If you don't have a motivation that gives you a target date that they're trying to move by, then you really don't have things to work around. So a lot of this presentation is based upon understanding what their goal is and why, and then where their pain is. There's always going to be, if there's no pain, then there's really no real motivation. If there's some point, there's got to be some type of pain. So a lot of as we went around on the tables today, we found in that conversation we had, if you were looking to move up to another home and you hadn't found it yet, that motivation wasn't quite there. So those are more difficult sellers to deal with. Would everybody agree that if you're dealing with a seller that doesn't have to move, that they're just not as easy to close? So you want to find the pain point. Where is it when are they going to become the most motivated? And usually there's a date associated with that. So that's what we want to find out. And on the appointment later, I'll show you how we use that date and how we find even more pain and put the seller in the place where they actually feel that pain. And that's another little trick that we use later on. So you have to have the target date. If they don't give you a target date, then it has to be 90 days. That's my number, and I don't put houses on the market with the intent of selling them in 7 months or 5 months or 6 months. My intent is just, if it's going to sell at the top of the market, it's going to sell in 90 days or less. And that's the number that we're going to shoot for. I don't think, does anybody think it needs to be longer than that if they're going to put it on the market, that your goal is to put it on the market and sell it in 4 or 5 months is more realistic in your marketplace? If it is, you could probably use that number. I think 90 days is plenty of time to put a house on the market. If properly priced and positioned correctly, it should sell in 90 days or less, obviously depending on some of the numbers. So going on through just some of the additional information, if you have questions, throw them out here, but there's not a whole lot of real killer stuff here that I need to say, I don't think. Go ahead.
Understanding that you're saying you still register your listing for 6 months, right?
With the automatic 3-month renewal, absolutely. Yeah, they automatically renew for an additional 90 days. So
Do all your listing?
Every single one, huh?
Do all of your listing agreements expire at the end of the month, like months?
We haven't really perfected that, unfortunately. Okay. But yes, that's a great idea. That one, I need to write that down because we still haven't done that.
Ready when you are, sir.
I know Mike's does. We're actually tagging these as a possible short sale if the numbers look like if they bought it in the last 3 years. I actually have Dina tag those as a short sale to come to me or Stace or someone in the office that can help her to determine if it's a probable short sale. Then that appointment goes to Connie in-house. So that's how we handle that.
What's wrong with his
Okay, this is pretty good. There's not really. I thought there was one other thing. Okay, yeah, this is important. How much do they have an idea of what they think their home might sell for? That's another important one. Obviously, mortgage balance is another important one, but this I use later on, so I want to always make sure I get what they think it's worth, because that's important in building the report stage. You can blow it if you're not careful there. So that's pretty much it. Any upgrades that they've made, that's another important one, just so you know anything that, any repairs that they may have done, something that cost them money, something they decided it was a good idea. That means they have certain feelings or emotions tied to that, so you want to make sure you point it out when you're walking through the property. It's just pretty simple stuff. So that's pretty much it. Generally speaking, Dina would also determine kind of what their personality type is, so I know who I'm dealing with. But that's pretty much it on the seller counseling interview. Well, let's go ahead and sit down, Wally, and we'll do the first.
Hey, fix your microphone because it's going sideways and you keep going in and out.
In and out. Okay. So when I get to the property, Wally and I are gonna obviously probably be in rapport real quick as we start this presentation.
Can I have a hug?
Huh?
Can I have a hug?
No.
No. Okay.
No hugs for you. I try not to get that close to my clients. Okay, so
what are you doing in my house?
when we get to here, stand up for a second. Okay. Whenever I get to the door, the very first thing I do when I get to the door is I shake.
Yes, hello.
It's working. Hey, how you doing, Jay Kinder?
Hey, Wally, how are you?
Great. So I'll come in. I'm carrying my stuff. I literally set it down right by the door, and generally speaking, you can tell kind of what their personality is right off the bat if turn your knob accordingly. So at that very moment, if there's both parties there, if there's two people involved in the sale, I immediately go to, hey, well, great, who wants to give me the grand tour?
I'll do that.
Okay, great. So if Wally's like, oh yeah, come on, well, he's the D, if he could be the decision maker, or he could say, hey, go ahead, show them the house. So if you pay attention to that, a lot of times you can determine who probably the decision maker is, and you're going to want to start working on befriending them if at all possible. The whole entire rest of this appointment is all hinging upon whether or not I can connect and align and become their best friend and get them to know, like, and trust me. And I do this naturally, and you should do this naturally. It's just being real. Look at their house, look at what they have. If there's somebody that has OU stuff, we start talking OU. If there's somebody that has a Harley Davidson in the garage and the garage door's up when I get there, we're talking about motorcycles. We're talking about where they go ride, where have they been riding, that sort of thing. Anything and everything that I can find to talk about until I feel like we've connected and they know, like, and trust me, and both parties. So don't just do one and not the other. I shared this story, I think, pretty much at every table, but I'll say it one more time. I had a seller that me and the husband, big buddies, me and the wife, wasn't there. And I knew that if I didn't make that connection with her, that I was potentially going to be walking out. I was competing against 4 or 5 agents. So I didn't want to lose a listing, so I had to find some common ground. And I will literally sit down on the couch and I will talk with both of them with absolutely no real estate talk whatsoever, sometimes quite uncomfortably, until I find something to talk about that will get where I feel like I've connected and become their best friend. When it gets to that point, then we'll go talk business. But until then, I'm just leaving that up to chance. So I'm just not going to waste my time and skip that step and get in a rush and skip the rapport building. It's very, very important to the rest of everything that we do. If you want, and I guess too, it's not about trying to just become their best friend so you can get the listing. They will not take your advice. I know that the advice that I'm going to give them is the best. And has anybody ever lost a listing because somebody else came in behind you or before you and priced it higher and it didn't sell? Maybe these days it goes into foreclosure, or they lose the house. It's a bad experience for that seller. Okay, that sucks. So in order for me to do the best job possible, I have to take the time to get them to know, like, and trust me so I can advise them properly. Bottom line. If they don't listen to me, they're probably going to make a bad decision, and people make bad decisions, and I'm trying to stop that from happening. So it's not about just so you can get the listing. It's about really getting them to listen to your advice. And that's another key thing when it gets down to the discussion, and you go in and you wow them and you give them this great presentation and everything's all good and great, and they love everything that you had to say, and they list it with you, but it's all price that they want to list it at a higher price. They're just not listening. And so you take the listing and it ends up not selling, and you don't get paid, and they hate you, and they're telling 10 people now that you suck, instead of that they love you. And it's all because they just didn't have that. You didn't have that little one thing, that step you skipped, which was rapport. Then they would have listened to what you had to say because you established yourself as an expert. And it sounds like, I know I'm beating a dead horse here, but this is the most critical part of the entire process. The rest of it is just a bunch of fancy paperwork and presentation that anyone can do. If you do this right, you'll never have to worry about, people will just take and listen to everything that you say, and your life will become much easier as an agent. You want your clients to listen to what you have to say. You don't want to have to fight them on every step of the way. So that being said, at this point, me and Wally would have felt, if we felt like I felt comfortable with rapport, we're going to go to the kitchen table and say, Wally, what I'd like to do is I'd like to go over some market information, if that's okay.
There you go.
It's not okay to touch me though.
Okay. We ain't doing business yet.
Oh, all right. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to go over some of the market data. I think it's real important to understand the current market conditions. You want to sit down at the table? Is that okay with you?
Sure.
Okay, great.
Hey, remember I told you I had this collection of $20 bills that I taped together?
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. I got
That's
one right
amazing.
here. Andrew Jackson looks a little twisted, doesn't he?
Wow, how much time did that take you to do?
15 minutes to be exact.
That's impressive.
Good ROI, isn't it?
I'm sure there's another stack of 20s that need taped back together that you could probably earn. So
what do you think of the house?
Man, I tell you what, this is a great house. I get to see a lot of houses every day, and it's not every day I see someone that's made the kind of smart investments you've made in as far as upgrades. So you're definitely gonna
3/4 inch nails in the hardwood.
That's absolutely very impressive. That's awesome. Okay, Wally. So here's what I want to do. Megan, can you throw up the market absorption analysis on the screen?
I mean, do you think we can sell this? The market's been kind of crappy lately.
Huh? Oh yeah, absolutely. A house like this, we're not gonna have any problem selling it. Absolutely. Okay. What I want to do is I do want to go over the market conditions. This is a very important part of the process, because in today's market, there's a lot of things going on, and we want to make sure that we position the home properly in the marketplace. Mm-hmm. So there are definitely homes that aren't selling and homes that are selling, and every price range is different. So one of the things that I've learned over the years, and it's kind of funny because about 12 years ago, Wally, I used to do what's called a CMA. Are you familiar with that terminology?
Yeah, I hope you brought one with you.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because they actually, and I'm not really sure, there may be a few agents that still do these CMAs, but it's really not a very effective approach to putting a home on the market in the current market conditions, and I'll kind of explain why that is. If you go back historically and you look at homes, and have you seen there's been a lot of homes in the neighborhood selling recently?
Oh yeah.
I mean, have you?
Yeah, the people next door lost their house to foreclosure.
Yeah, so that's not obviously not a good situation, but there's different homes that have sold, and then as you go back further, there's additional sales that the market was actually worse than it is today. The market is actually improving, so we want to take advantage of the current market conditions. One of the things that we found about historical data is that it doesn't really help in terms of your strategy for positioning your home in today's market. It's a good way to look at the market as it was, but it's not a good way to look at the market today. Let me give you an example. When it comes down to a historical property that may have sold, or a comparable sales, what a lot of agents call them, it doesn't tell you that the home may have not been staged properly, and it had really bad furniture in it, and it looked really terrible, or it wasn't landscaped at all, and it didn't look really very pretty from the curb appeal of view. It doesn't tell you that it didn't smell good. So I mean, it could have been in a really bad condition on the inside. There's a number of things that historical data doesn't tell us. It doesn't tell us if the agent priced it correctly. So if the agent put the home on the market and this home was just underpriced, there's no way for us to know that information. It doesn't tell us also the information about homes that were on the market at that given time. So a good example of that is if you go back to the last quarter of 2008, an election year, it was the worst quarter in real estate history in our marketplace. So anything that sold then or shortly thereafter probably went through a period of time where they had little or no showings, probably were very discouraged, and could have made premature price reductions. They could have been got much more motivated, but all this historical data doesn't tell us any of those factors involved in why a home may have sold at a certain price. Does that make sense? So we don't want to rely on historical data to determine how we're going to position your home in today's market. But what I want to do now is I want to go through some of the market statistics that we use to help in determining how we're going to position your home in today's market. And our goal, Wally, is to price this home. You mentioned that you want to have it sold in the next 90 days, basically.
Yep.
So we want to position your home to sell at the top of the market. Okay, so this is our market absorption analysis, and what I pulled up essentially is the overall market statistics. The property address 1701 Northwest Kenyon. You told me you kind of thought the house was worth about $130,000. So what I did was I pulled up homes between $125,000 and $150,000.
Right.
Currently on the market right now, there's 93 homes for sale. There's a number of homes that failed to sell in the last 6 months. There's been 47 homes that failed to sell. There's also, in the last 6 months, there's been 116 homes that have sold. So we have a total number of homes sold per month of about 19 and about 4.8 months worth of inventory. So what that basically says is that the market is actually moving pretty good. 4.8 months worth of inventory is pretty low. It's the lowest I've seen in the last 3 years. So that means there's not quite as many homes for sale as opposed to the number of homes that are available. So this is definitely in our favor. So it's going to allow us to take advantage of a market that's moving in an upward position. So we're going to be able to hopefully help you net more money by positioning the home to sell, because we know there's a lot of buyers out there in the marketplace.
Are you telling me that 2/3 of the homes aren't going to sell?
Yeah, essentially, based on in the time frame that you've given, 90 days is the time frame that we had to sell. We know there's going to be new homes that come on the market. We can't really predict that, but based on the number of homes that are selling, the inventory could start going down. But I base these numbers on just knowing that there's, generally speaking, at this time of year, we're going to see about the same number of homes coming off the market that come on the market. Essentially, there's going to be 57 homes that sell in the next 90 days, and there's going to be 93 homes that don't sell. Only 38% of the homes are going to sell.
We want to be one of the 57.
Yeah, exactly. Our goal is to make sure that we position the home in the marketplace to be one of those 38% of the homes that do sell.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
So that's basically an overview of the current condition of the market, and there's some additional statistics that we can go through. And I'm not going to go through this because it's going to be kind of a pain. This is the report. The other graphs. Go ahead. Let me show you these. This is the same information. That's kind of the overview that I go through. We can get detailed and talk about this as much as I feel like I need to talk until I feel like they know that I'm smart. That's bottom line. It's just, all this is the same information. I'm going to show them every graph that I can, a number of solds, and then we're going to look specifically at their price bracket. So you, again, on the seller counseling interview, I asked Wally where he thinks his home is worth. Remember that question? What do you think your home is worth? So I'm still staying broad with this market absorption analysis, even if it's not the right numbers exactly. I'm still going to show him at least include his range. So if he thinks it's $10,000 or $20,000 overpriced, I may still include that range, just because I don't want to go in there and flop down some paperwork on a market absorption and have a range that's completely below what he thinks, because they'll shut down on you every time. So make sure you just include that number, ask for that number, get that number, and then just talking in terms of relative to their price point. Pretty simple stuff. Go through all of this. It just looks very professional.
And who are you getting these through?
This one is Real Market Trends, I believe. realmarketreports.com. I think that's it, yeah. realmarketreports.com. $30 a month or something ridiculously cheap. So average days on the market, again, more statistics, more powerful information. And again, anything, I don't like to point out information that's really, really good, unless I believe that I can really position the house in a way that's going to be more than what they may have been thinking, because I already know the number, right? So if you tell me you think it's worth $130 and I know the market is on the upswing, it's real clear. My market, days on the market is going down, okay, right? And and as we see, the prices of homes are staying pretty steady, but we know that as days on the market are going down, homes are moving more rapidly. As you get into some of the market statistics, this has got a lot of the meat of this report is right here. We can look at so we have 150 to 175,000. There's 53 homes on the market. 163 days is the. I'm sorry. Where are we? 125 to 150. 93 homes on the market. 104 average days on the market. The pending ratio is 31.6%. So that's not too bad. It's not the greatest, but it's definitely active. There's been 11. This whole column is incorrect. He's not pulling some information correctly. I got to get that fixed. Total number of homes sold 116, and going through 99.2% list price sale price ratio, 4.8 months worth of inventory. That's pretty good numbers, right? That looks like kind of like a few years ago, doesn't it? So that's good information. So I like to give good information. As you're going through the property, Wally's talking about, it's a bad market. I hear everything on TV. It's really bad. It's really bad. Man, I'm singing the praises. Man, this house is awesome. This house is great. I want us to be positive about the house, and then I want to be real about the market when it's time to be real about the market. My situation is different from all of yours. I'm probably pretty sure it's already on the upswing. Things are actually really looking up for our marketplace. So that excitement is going to carry through unless I know that the number he gave me is different. If the number he gave me is right, or if he thinks his house is worth way more than it's worth, then I'm going to try to point out some of the more scary things. I'm going to really sit there only 38%. And I'll print out the whole list of every single property, and I'll go, this is how many pages of homes that aren't going to sell in the time frame you told me it's important. And I'm going to push the pain button so I can get him to understand that's what's really important in order to get the home sold. But if it's not that situation, then we're just going to be excited together and go that direction. But that's why that information is so key. I know what he thinks it's worth. I know what it's worth. We haven't gone there yet, and we're not going to go there yet, but I know how I want to treat this whole entire conversation and this whole entire education process on the marketplace based upon where he thinks his house is worth and if that's reality or not. Does that make sense to everybody? That's a really, really important part of the process. So go ahead and throw up the broker metrics reports. We'll leave these up for a second. These are just more reports that we print out. And it's just more statistical data. So, we'll go through all of it. I'll explain 10 minutes worth of market information if I have to, just again to establish that knowledge, that I have more knowledge on the marketplace. The number of homes that are for sale is going down. The number of expireds is going down. All good stuff, right? So under contract is going up. Anybody like my real estate market? This is looking good, isn't it? So this is sold, the number of solds. Say that again. Broker metrics, brokermetrics.com. I think it's $100 a month maybe, and you can pull all kinds of crazy graphs and anything and everything you ever dreamed of.
So everybody gets a steady dose of this before you say one word about marketing.
Yes, we go through all of this together, and we're in very broad terms of the market and not specific. Broad terms of the market, not specific. If he tries to pinpoint, what do you think my house is worth? So we'll get to that. Okay, we're not going there yet. So especially if I might tell him if I know, it's like opening a Christmas present. I know if he's going to be happy or not when he opens the present. So I may want to really play off of that, and I might want to get him excited about it, or I might be like, oh, we'll get to that. So right, so you just want to make sure you pay attention to that. So that's how you use that information. Okay, so. That's pretty much it, Wally. Based on the overall real estate market, it's obviously looking pretty good. So based on what you've told me you want to accomplish in the next 90 days, I feel very confident that we're going to be able to position your home at the top of the market and be able to sell it for the most amount of money. And I want to show you how we're going to do that. Is that okay?
Yeah, what do you mean by the top of the market?
Well, the top of the market in terms of, and we're going to get into this here in a second. In the presentation, I'm going to show you kind of what that means. And in essence, to answer your question, Wally, there's a top and a bottom to every real estate market, whether it's a good market or a bad market. Homes either sell for the most that they could possibly sell for, and then you also see homes that sell for a lot less than that. And there's several factors involved in having a home sell at the top of the market versus not at the top of the market. And what we're going to go through is what those factors are, how we can take advantage of those factors to make sure that not only do we sell your home, but we sell it for the most potential money and net to you. And we're going to show you the system we use to do that. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Any other questions on the overall market? Is that pretty clear to you?
No, we're good.
Okay, great. Cool. We'll go to the listing presentation. Okay. So one of the things that we always obviously have to pay attention to is we've seen, Wally, that there are a lot of homes that fail to sell. There's a lot of homes that have been selling and the market looks good, but there still is the danger of homes not selling. In the last 12 months, there's been 1,063 homes that came on the market and failed to sell in our marketplace. So this is still a very real possibility that a home that just might not sell. So we want to make sure that we do all the things necessary to keep that from happening. And now I'm going to show you kind of what things that we're doing to do that. Okay, so when we talked about the home selling at the top of the market versus the bottom of the market, are you familiar with a term called price elasticity?
That's with like, you know, the likelihood that somebody's going to buy based upon what the price of the house is, right? Something like that.
Absolutely, nothing to do with it. But that was a good guess.
Joke.
No, I'm just kidding. No. So price elasticity, that's pretty close. That's actually a pretty good definition of it. At the end of the day, in your neighborhood even, we've seen houses sell for $104 a foot and homes just like it sell for $92 a foot. So there's a big gap in terms of what your home can sell for and what it may sell for and what it, you know, the low end of the marketplace. I'm assuming, Wally, that you want to sell your home for the most amount of money at the top of the market, at the top of that curve. Is that right? Okay, so then we're going to show you what the factors are exactly involved in selling a home at the top of the market, and we're going to make sure we take advantage of those. So let's go on to the next slide. So basically there's four factors involved that are going to help you to net the most amount of money in your home sale. So when we're going to talk a little bit about positioning and how we position your home in the marketplace and how important it is to understand the current market and the factors that are involved before we put your home on the market. Also, we're going to talk about exposure, which is the number of qualified buyers out there that know about your property and how many showings that we can get. It's a real simple equation. The number of eyeballs that see your home versus the number of footprints we get to the front door is going to help us to determine the offer that we get the quickest and for the most amount of money. So there's a perfect buyer out there for your home. I've had clients ask me before, well, is the big backyard going to help us or is it going to hurt us? Well, it's going to help you because you have a wonderful, huge backyard, and the perfect buyer for this home is looking for this same home on a corner lot with a huge backyard and a brand new wood fence, and that's one block from Whittier Elementary School. So that's the perfect buyer for this home, and it's my job to find the perfect buyer. So there would be another buyer that could come along and like this home and not be attracted to the backyard, but that's not who we're looking for. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, this house is perfect, so I'm sure
absolutely.
there should be no problem you selling it.
Absolutely. So that's important. The more buyers that know about it, the more likely we are to find that perfect buyer. Negotiation is the third thing, which we'll talk about some strategic ways that we're going to help you to negotiate the home to sell at a higher price. And then also the execution of the plan. It's one thing to say all these things. That's another thing to make sure that we execute them. We'll go through how we're going to do that as well.
Right.
Okay, so positioning. You've actually lost, and I don't know if you know this statistic, but you've lost actually 80% of your negotiating power once you have the offer. Does that make sense?
No.
So once you have the offer on your home, the buyer, your ability to negotiate that price upwards, you've lost the majority, 80% of your ability to negotiate upwards on the price.
Why is that?
Well, the reason for that is because the buyer has mentally and emotionally evaluated your property compared to the other homes that are available on the market. They've looked at what you have to offer and how it's positioned and how it shows and all the factors involved, and they've determined in their mind what that home is worth. Your ability to convince them that it's worth more now is going to be much more difficult than it is when they walk through the front doors the very first time. So what we want to do is we want to always negotiate. Go to the next slide. What we always want to do is negotiate from a position of knowledge and strength. We always want to be in the pole position when it comes to the negotiation process and positioning. So like I mentioned before we put your home on the market, it's very important for us to look at all of the homes that are currently on the market that you're going to be competing with. Go backwards and look at how many homes that are like this have recently sold, and really pay close attention to where your competition is priced how well it shows, what exactly is it that you're competing against, because if you only, again, looking backwards, if you look at that, the reason we don't do a CMA is because of these are the factors that's going to allow us to position the home in a way that when the buyer walks in, we want them to say, oh my gosh, this is the best deal on the market. We want them to feel that way about the property. And that's how we're going to sell it for the most money.
I mean, I'm a good negotiator. You should have seen the deal I got on the Prius I bought.
On the Prius?
Awesome.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, we got the
what kind of gas mileage are you getting with that?
well, since I'm a bigger guy, I don't get as much, but the electricity really helps in that. The savings are incredible.
Wow.
Really, really. I mean, we're very, very green and very conscious.
That's great.
So very, very important. I think the mileage was it's a 42.2 highway, 39.7 city.
That's impressive.
That's good. Yeah.
I certainly wouldn't talk about my Hummer at this point. You just hope you didn't show up.
Right. So we just love it, and I saved myself a lot of money at the dealership on my Prius.
That's great. Well, this is going to make a lot of sense to you, Wally. So obviously you pay close attention to the numbers. I'm a numbers guy. I love to look at the numbers, and this is going to make a lot of sense. So when it comes down to negotiation from a position of knowledge and strength, to net the most possible money, one of the things that we're going to do on the home is a pre-inspection, and there's a couple of reasons for that. You know what the number one deal killer, aside from the loan falling apart after in escrow, the number one deal killer is of all real estate transactions?
I'm inclined to believe it's the inspection.
It's the inspection process. It's absolutely the worst part of the entire process. One of the things that we've found is that you actually spend 2 to 1 on the repairs after the inspection has been done versus doing a pre-inspection. So by going ahead and doing a pre-inspection now, there's a couple of really, really big key advantages. Number one, you're not going to spend as much money when a buyer finds, when you're in escrow and you've moved out of the house and everything's looking great and they do their home inspection and we get a list of $2,000 worth of little nitpicky things that need to be done, and it may or may not be really that relevant, and it may or may not be that exorbitant of a cost. Right. But what happens is the buyer wants to start renegotiating with the offer, and essentially the contract becomes null and void, and we're back into the negotiation stages. This is where the majority of the deals that I lose fall apart, is right here.
How much is that going to cost?
The investment is pretty minimal, anywhere from $250 to $350 for a pre-inspection, but I'm going to show you how that's going to help you to net the most money. It's a very critical point in positioning. If you were a buyer and you're looking at homes that are on the market and you were about to make an offer on a home, and every home that you looked at has a little nick on the woodwork here or has a little problem there, or whatever the case may be, mentally you start adding that up in your head and just justifying the reason for making a lower offer. Does that make sense?
Right, so I got to lay out $250?
The real question I have for you, Wally, is how many times would you trade $10 bills for $100 bills?
Always.
Okay. Well, the things that I'm going to advise you to do, I can assure you, Wally, I'm not going to tell you anything that you need to do that's number one outside of the budget that we determined together for investing back into the property to sell it at the top of the market. Right. And it's not going to be anything that's not going to give you a significant return on investment. Is that fair enough?
Yep.
This is one of those items. Okay, so the next step is home warranty. This is kind of a no-brainer. Home warranty covers, and you may have a home warranty on the house now. It actually covers the home for an additional 12 months for the buyer. There's actually a place in the contract for the buyer to ask the seller to pay for one of these. The good news is it covers the listing during the listed process, and it also allows us to market the home as being pre-inspected and coming with a warranty, which is going to hit on the emotional hot buttons of the buyer and justify them either making a higher offer or also negotiating back upwards to a higher offer, again, increasing the net that you're going to make on the property.
So how much does that cost?
Home warranty doesn't cost you anything up front, and there's various plans that we'll get to when we go through the paperwork, and you can make a decision on which company you'd like to go with.
Okay, $250 buyer inspection. Okay. Not going to cost me anything for the warranty?
We're going to go through a very detailed net sheet towards the end of the presentation, and I'm going to break down every single cost.
I'll just put a question mark here, then that's fine. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Wally. We're going to be here a while. Okay, so the next step is our strategic home preparation plan. One of the things that actually I found recently was an amazing statistic that homes that are staged by a professional ASP certified stager actually have been shown to sell for as much as 7.6% more money than homes that haven't been staged.
Wow.
That's a pretty impressive number, and obviously a big number in terms of what your home actually is going to sell for and the net money that you're going to pull away from the sale. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through a list of things. We're actually going to bring over a stager to come through the property. And this is at no cost to you. She's going to come through and she's going to do an evaluation and give you an opportunity to retain her services for staging the property to help you to make sure that it's in the perfect condition. So this is her expertise, and her name is Alicia, and we'll schedule that once you decide to move forward and put the home on the market. We'll go ahead and schedule that, and she'll be able to come out at no charge to you and have a consultation with you to go through all the things that she feels most important in getting the home ready to go on the market.
Wow. That's an extra $9,900.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
Wow.
We want to make sure we get the most money. So
No cost for that?
yeah, no cost for that.
Okay, good.
Correct.
Thank you.
That's included. So exposure, when it comes down to it, this is another very, very important part of the process. As we've sold a lot of real estate over the years, one of the things that we've realized is that your home can be absolutely beautiful. It can be perfect and wonderful in every possible way. But if there's not enough people that know about the property, buyers that know about the property, then we're going to have issues with getting it sold for the most amount of money. So I want to show you our plan that we use to get your home the most exposure into the marketplace.
Okay.
Where did my Camaro go? Is it gone? No Camaro? Okay. Well, there's.
I would never drive a Camaro, so it doesn't really matter because they use so much gas.
That's a good point. Yeah.
They're just not efficient.
That muscle car would have been no help.
I would never waste the money on that anyway, quite honestly.
There is a slide that will go back in here. Has everybody seen the supply and demand slide? Does anybody not know what do you say on that slide?
How do you sell a classic car?
Yeah, this is actually a true story. Great time to make up a story right here. Okay, if you don't have make up a story if you have to. I had a client that literally had a car, and I'm gonna tell Wally a story just to keep us in context. I actually had a client. Wally, it's kind of interesting. This Camaro, this classic Camaro. I had a client that we were talking about all of the things that we do to sell a home and all the marketing we do to get the home more exposure. And
right.
Obviously you see the value in all the marketing things that we're going to be doing and how it's going to help you to net more money. But this particular client didn't really quite understand that, and how much money it really was going to help him to net, much more than what he would had he listed with someone else. And we were talking about this. He had a really nice car, and he spent a lot of time talking about his car in the garage.